brothers who were always pushing each other around, and when I was big enough to play their wrestling and boxing games, they included me too. They were always hitting or punching me, and instead of crying, I just hit and punched back harder. They'd often stop the games because they were in so much pain. I found it all amusing because I felt nothing. When I was about 6, my family and I were on the beach, and my mom got a sea urchin stuck in her foot. She screamed and shouted in pain. Then she burst into tears. My father tried to pull it out, but the more he tried, the more it hurt. I really couldn't understand why it affected my mother so much, so I went into the sea and caught another sea urchin. I dropped it onto the sand and jumped on it. It tickled. "Mom, this is fun. Why are you crying?" I said. "Oh my God, Ryan," she said. We both had urchins stuck in our feet. I was giggling and my mom was crying. My poor dad had to deal with it all. He drove us to the hospital where they helped us to remove the spikes. For my mother, this seemed unbearable, but it didn't affect me at all. And I guess that is when I realized I was a bit different. I decided to use this difference to my advantage. At school, I developed the nickname Fearless because I was always doing the most outrageous stunts. I'd climb to the top of the monkey bars and deliberately throw myself down. Or I'd swing really high, then just jump off midair. One day, I brought a lighter to school and tried to impress a girl by burning my finger. It was so much fun. But I have to warn you, don't try any of this at home, or anywhere for that matter. I got into trouble for this because eventually the other kids wanted to attempt my stunts. When they did, they'd end up in excruciating pain with broken limbs. It got so bad that my parents were called into a meeting and I was expelled for being a bad influence. At my new school, I became a bully because I was angry that those stupid boys from my other school got me in trouble. I became the most feared boy at school, and people would think twice before crossing my path. The bigger boys in the higher grades tried to mess with me once, but I beat them up so badly that they learned to stay away from me. They were so shocked when I only laughed at them while they punched and kicked me. I have to admit that part of me really loved the attention and respect. I would do things just for the thrill and attention. For example, one afternoon, my parents decided they'd take us kids out to enjoy a cool stroll in the zoo. After laughing at the penguins and observing the zebras, I began to feel a bit bored. As we approached the lion's pit, I got a bright idea. Ryan, no!" my mom screamed, but it was too late. I had already jumped in. I walked around making funny faces at the lions while the crowd screamed for me to get out. Many people had already taken out their phones and they were recording. I ignored them because there was a cute little lion cub approaching me. I ran towards it and picked it up. Suddenly, I heard more shouting. "Ryan, look out!" my dad said. Before I could even turn around, a lioness, the cub's mother I guess, jumped on my back and bit my arm. I turned around and pried her jaws apart with my bare arms. Then I laughed and hopped out of the lion's pit. I was bleeding, but I seemed totally unbothered by the whole incident. I went viral that same afternoon. Everyone was talking about me. In the weeks that followed, I became so popular that I was invited by several talk show hosts to talk on their shows. It was all the attention I'd been craving, and more. As a teenager, I continued participating in extreme sports. I got tired of the bully reputation, so when I moved to high school, I hung out with the tough kids who were also into extreme sports. We called ourselves the Daredevils, and every other week we'd try a different challenge. We went mountain biking, paragliding, skydiving, and base jumping, but my ultimate favorite was cliff diving. I loved the adrenaline rush I'd get while falling through the air and then crashing on the sea. Unlike my friends, I had absolutely no fear. One afternoon on one of our cliff diving adventures, I had an experience that influenced the rest of my life. It was just like any ordinary day, but while making silly gestures on a cliff, I ended up losing my balance. Instead of falling into the sea, I hit the rocks and I ended up breaking both my arm and my leg. I only knew this because this is what the x-rays at the hospital revealed. I felt completely fine. Luckily, my problem could be easily fixed, but the doctors were extremely puzzled about why I seemed to feel no pain at all. Although I could have been discharged earlier, they decided to keep me longer. Several tests were conducted, and after that, they did several more.